Hi, welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White. I'm the founder of the Bobby White Foundation, and of course I'm here with...
Hello, Bonnie Snyder.
Hey, Bonnie. We have nice cool weather this week, which is really good, so the AC won't come on in the studio.
We hope. We hope it won't come on.
Yeah. Anyways, we want to thank you guys for joining us, and of course thank our tech guy Rob and Area 52 Media Group. Hey, it's coming out a little easier. John, our producer, for giving us his platform and being able to come to you and talk about the things that are difficult to talk about.
Safe space. Nice safe space.
Safe space. Just before I left to come to the studio, I received a link to an article from a friend of mine about the Tampa Bay area's new 988 response call center, and how there has been since July a tremendous rise in calls. They said before, when they had the regular 10-digit number, when the new number, the 988, came out, they received on an average 80 to 100 calls per week. Now it gets up to 400 calls per week. So that's good, and that's kind of bad. They are having a hard time staffing the centers. So if anybody is interested in training to do this, Tampa Bay crisis line, prevention line needs help.
You know, I was watching I'm trying to remember where it was, whether it was it a work training, or I was sitting in a meeting, or watching something on the news, because the events that I end up in tend to blend every once in a while. But the conversation was around, 988, its rollout and what it meant in terms of, people calling, for this. And one of the things that they did talk about, and what I find interesting in this article with the increased number of calls, the part of the conversation had to do with, looking at the numbers, and how much the data would change in terms of, calls increasing and whatnot. So the question became, are these numbers increasing because there are more incidents of people, either attempts or concerns, or are the numbers increasing because 988 is a whole lot easier than that 10-digit number? I remember shortly after I got, I moved here to Florida. So we're talking probably around the 2008, 2009 time frame. Might have been 2010, but between 2008 and 2010, the VA was, collecting data on their crisis line and, responses and whatnot. And I was, fortunate, not fortunate, depends on how you look at it, to be a part of that focus group that talked about, the numbers and whatnot, and why do people call and not call. And I remember telling them, because back then, if you called, and I mind you about picking on the VA, VA line, the Veterans Crisis Line is one of our numbers, as you guys know. But anyway, I told them, I said, I'd call the crisis line, or I would call, just because the regular VA number, and it tells you, if you are, contemplated suicide, if you're having a mental health emergency, and you need to talk to somebody, hang up and call this number. So if I'm in a crisis, I have to remember what number they're telling me to call. I have to hang up and then call that number. It doesn't, back then it didn't give an option of, here's the number, or press 1, or even take away the number and say, if you're having a mental health crisis, push 1.
Right.
And I remember as I was talking to the people, the person who was in charge, and I was like, if I was suicidal, this process, and I mean, and I have to make sure, that's like not joking about this. This is not a joking matter. However, at the same time, it was, if I was truly in a crisis, trying to get to somebody through this process, I would have said, you know what, the heck with it, and if I was in a,
And who knows what would happen?
I would. I said, this mechanism makes me want to, would make me want to attempt, just because of how difficult it was.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was, pleased to see that, with 988 rolling out, and even the VA has changed, how you get to their crisis line as well.
Well, in this article, it's an article actually from the Tampa Bay Times, and it says that local centers are struggling with heightened interest and changes to the areas they cover. So before the 988 rolled out, the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay was the main call center for Hillsborough County. Now it's responsible for Hillsborough and Charlotte counties. And the 211 Tampa Bay cares, which 211 is, I think, part of the United Way.
Yeah, it's a resource line.
Right. And they used to receive up to 500 suicide and mental health calls a month, health crisis calls a month. Now it gets as many as 1,700. So the state still hasn't come out with the stats for the suicide deaths in Florida this year, hoping they come out. For some reason, it's always like almost a year behind. So hopefully they'll be coming out, fairly soon. But on top of that, this article came kind of was sent to me kind of at a apropos time, I guess. It's kind of weird to say. But, a couple of months ago I had mentioned a teen suicide death in Palm Harbor, a young girl. Her name is Mckenna Brown, and I have permission from her mom to talk about this today. I didn't know that this was happening, but on Tuesday's episode of Dr. Phil, her parents were on. And so pretty much what happened came to light, and it is so disturbing. She was basically, Monday also had an episode of a young girl, and it was titled Bullied to Death. And this is the same issue with McKenna's death. With Mckenna, this happened within a time period of 5 days. That's all. 5 days of bullying, and she took her life. She was a beautiful young girl. She was active in school, active in sports, and a group of girls decided, I guess, to turn on her, and within 5 days she had taken her life. Now there were some kids within this group or just outside of this group who saw what was going on, but either didn't know how or didn't do it soon enough to reach out and to say, hey, we see this is happening. They're not getting a good response from the school. And I had mentioned before that there is an issue with this school. McKenna's mom, Cheryl, said on the show, this school has had 7 suicide deaths in 7 years. And they're not addressing it. So this was only a 5-day period that this young girl was bullied in order to take, and she took her life. The other young girl, she was only 13 years old. She had been bullied at school, online. Her mom, her mom's name is Antoinette, and the nickname, she called her daughter Muffin. And these are parents who were extremely active in these children's lives and tried to coax them through this. Antoinette knew a little bit more about Muffin being bullied, whereas Mckenna's parents didn't until after the fact. But it wasn't as though these parents weren't active in these children's lives at all. These were good parents that were involved in these kids' lives. And these bullies are relentless.
Every time the school year begins, and I find myself, in a school, that I'm working, and I'm working, my other work, I should say my real work, but my full-time work. I always ask the students that I'm working with, to list for me their top, 3 to 5 topics that they want to, that's important to them, that's form a priority for them, I think is what I'm trying to say. And I'm never shocked over the number of times I get back bullied, that bullying is an issue. More so than let's just say if I have, 20 children in a classroom, 15 of them are going to come back with bullying. Then of course, right underneath that, excuse me, is, self-image, self-esteem, getting along with others. And, I come back, like we developed, my work, someone, I forget who it was on my team, developed a PowerPoint presentation to be given, be used at schools, like in our school district. It's, we took it to our school district. Here's what we got to address bullying. It was vetted by our school district, and we're allowed to use it. Or it's one of the reasons. Yep, that's fine with us. There's nothing in that. I mean, we do this more so to ensure that we are not trampling on any school district protocols or whatnot.
Right.
But it talks about in this discussion where we talk to the students about what is bullying, why the reasons people bully. We talk about the statistics, boys versus girls. Girls are more likely to be subjected to verbal and physical bullying. More the verbal stuff. Arguably some people will say, but girls are going to, be more verbally abusive to one another, where boys are going to be more physically abusive to one another. And there are, stats that play out on both sides in terms of, the who, what, why, where's, and whys. And it's where, what is it? The other thing they said that the disadvantage, I feel sometimes that girls have, is boys tend to be bullied only by boys, for the most part. Mm-hmm. Girls, however, are bullied on both sides.
Correct.
And, you sit back and you're like, when you see this happening in front of your face, and it's like, all right, guys, so let's talk about bullying. Help me understand this. And again, this presentation, what is bullying, the statistics of bullying, and, it also talks about, level of involvement. Well, what do you feel comfortable doing in addressing? And we talk about this whole bystander thing where, we say the majority of kids, when it comes to bullying, it's going to fall into that bystander thing. But why are some of us just simply bystanders and not willing to step forward and, either, address the issue head on or, confront the bully? Well, first of all, if I, to use myself as an example from a student, if I step forward, in my head, I'm processing, is now the bully and or their posse now going to take their, spotlight off of this person? Now I'm going to be on the receiving end of the bullying. Do I really want that? And sometimes kids will be like, no, I don't. I have other kids that would be, yes, Miss Bonni, darn straight, I would say something, and if I'm bullied, basically I can handle my own. And I'm like, okay,
Well, and sometimes too, some of these parents, like Antoinette said, because she tried to address it. I don't remember if it was through the schools or with parents or whatever, and it just intensified the bullying for Muffin.
Well, and unfortunately, I see that a lot too, because what happens is, when you said, you've parents and parent involvement, but I think it's also when it's going on in schools. How do, at what point or what capacity, do schools address it? Because unfortunately, what I've seen in some school districts or even some campuses, this school might be very a lot better at addressing bullying than this school, or this school district is better addresses it more adequately than this school district. And I think some of what I hear, when I think, all right, so if the bullying is intensified, what's really going on? In my brain, I think, okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Smith, your child is bullying this other student. So Mr. and Mrs. Smith looks at their child, hey, Johnny or Susie, what's this, what you bullying? No, Mom, Dad, I'm not doing it. Okay. And it's like, all right, so I see what's going to happen. You're going to snitch on me. That phrase, snitches get stitches. So it's like, aha. So if I have parents that, oh, you say you're not bullying? Okay, I'm not going to worry about it, or knock it off. And then that's
or my child wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
In McKenna's case, they know all the players, and still nothing has been addressed.
The confusion is, what can they do?
Well, that's true, and see too, and I can kind of see part of the school's situation, because a lot of the bullying happens on social media. Or through social media.
Yeah, if it's not on school property, there's.
So you have both, I'm sure it's happening at school, and then when school's out, then it continues on social media.
Well, the only thing too, like where, again, going back to things on social media and whatnot. My Thursday school, the school is. They have a dress code, and in terms of student electronics or cell phones, they're not allowed their electronics out at all during school. It's zero at all. And I was talking to my students, and they're like, hey, if you could change anything, what would it be? And they were like, oh, Miss Bonni, this phone policy, it's so stupid, and I really should be able to. And I was like. I'm like, girls, let's talk about this for a moment. And of course, for me, it's like, I'm looking, my phone is right over there, okay? And, I jokingly say, it's kind of killing me that, we're on air for an hour and I can't check my phone, And I mean, this is what mind you, this is what I do with my kids.
Right.
It's not killing me that I can't check my phone, or is it? But no, seriously, I would be, guys, I want to check my phone just as much as you guys. I want to, what emails have I come in? Let me see who hit me up on my social media page. Wow, there's a couple of apps on my phone that I'm addicted to. So I get it, but at times that phone needs to get put away. And I think once we became, and I look at it in, the mainstream schools, I feel that some kids have this sense of entitlement. It's my phone, and it's this day and age, and I could be on my phone if I don't want to, if I want to, and who are you to tell me to put it away? And one of the kids said, what was it? there was, something going on, and a couple of kids were with their cell phones just filming it. And now, granted, depending, what's being, say if it's something, a fight or bullying or something like that, great. It gives the administration the evidence that they need to
Right.
deal with it if it's happening on campus.
Right.
But again, I think the other thing that happens is, hey, Miss Bonni, so-and-so is bullying me. Really? I don't, Miss Bonni doesn't believe you. Or Miss Bonnie's not willing to do the legwork to validate what what you've said. So again, there's a whole lot of moving parts in terms of how involved schools can get. I also, look at people, again, I've done this in one of my classrooms. So how many of you guys in here have ever been bullied? And I usually get, a fairly decent amount of kids with their hands up, they've been bullied. How many of you guys have been the bully? Have been the ones bullied? And again, I'm surprised at the number of hands, that go up to that question. And it's like, all right, so let's talk about what are the reasons that you were bullying. I think it's important that we get to the root cause. Some of it is self-esteem, some of it is, along with self-esteem, I feel like crap, and I want somebody else to feel like crap too, or I feel like crap, and I hope this takes my mind off of how bad I feel, when the reality is no, it doesn't. It's, to me, I look at it, it's not even a quick fix. And they're like, okay, but no buts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I believe that Mckenna took her life just prior to school starting, and I think that her parents said that if she could have hung on until school started, that several of these girls involved would have been going to a different school than her. Maybe it would have dissipated. I don't know, but what I do know is I implore anybody watching this to go to drphil.com, find those 2 episodes. I was supposed to write down the date, but I didn't, but it was this past Monday, was Muffin's story, and on Tuesday was Mckenna's. And I want to applaud Mckenna's parents, Cheryl and Hunter, for speaking out about this. Because like I said, this is something that only took 5 days to happen.
Well, see, and I wonder if it was only 5 days.
I don't know, and it's something that they might never know. This particular incident and the intensity supposedly happened within this time frame.
Well, no, and I'm not discounting, I'm not discounting their, obviously they were there, I wasn't. But, when I look at, and I guess for me, again, going back to statistically, when bullying happens, which is why I said, I would question, I would want to look back and see how long was it going on, because I can almost see it as, what if, again, if, because we're in the English language, if this, child, call him child.
Well, she was only 16 years old.
So, Mckenna is, let's just say, I was looking at a picture, beautiful child. Beautiful child. Let's just say, bullying was subtle, or not as intense, and she's like, I can deal with it. Hey, cut it out. This isn't funny. Hey, cut it out. Leave me alone. Hey, stop. Leave me alone. Leave you alone? Okay. So then it intensifies. Okay. Hey, cut it out. Leave me alone. And, that last 5 minutes, which is basically like, how many times do I have to say cut it out? You won't cut it out. And it did go, and it went to this new level of, just vileness.
Well, it may have. I think, I'm going to watch the show again. I think that it was something surrounded because of a boy. But just please watch these 2 shows, and really what I would recommend doing is watching it with your kids after you watch it and sit and have a discussion.
Or if you don't watch it with your kids, I mean, I caution, I love Dr. Phil, and there are some episodes that I watch of his that it's okay for me as an adult to watch. I would not recommend watching it with children because
Well, not with children.
'cause it could be, traumatizing. I mean, we know our kids better than
Right.
than others. I would say, and sorry for the contradiction, but from professional standpoint, I would say definitely have the conversations with your child. If you think your child is mature enough to watch the episode, watch the
Right.
episode,
Well,
age
and
appropriate.
I shared the link, I think, for Mckenna's show already on our Facebook page, and I put on there, please, with your teenagers. This is the group. So I think it's really important because that's why we're here too. We have to talk about it. Some of the kids with Mckenna are feeling really bad because they couldn't get the information soon enough to whoever may have been able to help. And,
Well-
but we have to talk about it.
We do, but what I would say to those children who said, if only I would have gotten the word
We
out.
say the same thing.
Well, not only that,
In our situation.
it makes me think back to one of our earlier episodes when we asked Carl that question.
Right.
What would could you, because here, the belief was someone knew and chose not to say anything. Or for whatever reason didn't say anything, would that have saved him? And we don't know.
Well, and those kids too, you didn't know. Just like with us adults, we don't know what we don't know. And we feel the same way. I felt the same way. What if? What if I wouldn't have left that day? Or what if I didn't do one more errand?
Yeah, and I teach that, again, back, I think back, before I came to Florida, and I, used to do the training inside, the jails, it's part of, the Prison Rape Elimination Act. But in that, training, I talked a lot about, suicide and, dealing with someone who is, potentially contemplating suicide or who's contemplating. But then also if you are that person that's dealing with the individual who's contemplating and they end up completing, it is vitally important that you do recognize it wasn't your fault. You didn't, pull the trigger. You didn't, kick the chair. You didn't, whatever matter, you didn't feed them, the pills or whatnot. It was eventually their choice. You did what you can do. I'm not surprised at hearing, that bullying was a part of this, because it is an issue, a big issue, and more so in some schools than not, that really needs to be addressed.
And I wanted to mention too that if you have a teen that is, having a hard time, Ian's Way, Bonni, you're one of the counselors, so tell well, yeah, so tell them about that and how you can always get a hold of us at the show or at the foundation and we can direct you also, but tell us about what you do with Ian's Way and how even the parents, kids or the parents, can get on. You're still doing the Zoom counseling every couple of weeks?
Yeah, the second and fourth Mondays, I think, is where we put it. I don't think we've changed it. We've talked about potentially shifting the Mondays over. But what I think, when we look at, issues of not only, thoughts of suicide, but also, kids that are, having self-esteem issues or whatnot, and either have contemplated, thought about it, or just need a safe space to go to. And so, it's a Zoom link. It starts at 7 o'clock in the evening and goes till 9. So it gives, those teens, time to, go to work if they had, go to school, get a job, get some food, go hang out or whatnot. And then, and it's just a platform, it's like this one, that allows the youth to express how they're feeling, talk through what's going on, doing it in a safe and non-judgmental manner. I am cautious when I tell them, I was like, guys, I don't want you to think about this as a therapy group per se.
Right.
Because some people, I think, are put off by, oh, I got to go see my counselor today. I got to go see my therapist today.
Yeah.
Some of us are like, let me see my therapist. I need to see my therapist. They wear seeing their therapist around their neck like a badge of honor. And clear transparency. When I say that, I'm not saying that to be belittling or anything like that, because I know there's no shame in my game. I will tell you in a heartbeat, have I seen a therapist? Absolutely. Do I still see one today? Yes, I do. And I wear that like a badge of honor because, for me, it's one thing, and we're looking at, whether it's Ian's Way, whether it is, the other kinds of support groups, ASAP has, the Journey to Healing Hearts, for, another, good platform. That's the first Thursday.
That, and then there's the Pinellas County Suicide Support Group. Mm-hmm. Empath Healthcare has awesome counselors. That's where I had been going. And we have those resources locally available here. NAMI's another good resource also. So,
but yeah, there are in-person groups, there are virtual groups, there are hybrid groups, and from multiple different agencies. Like I said, Ian's Way, the one I do, that's all, that's virtual, twice a month. Journey to Healing Hearts, that's virtual also, once a month. As things change, like I said, we'll get back to doing things hybrid, or not, hybrid, or back to, strict, absolutely person to person.
Okay, so that's that. Now, we talked about last week, we thought we were going to finish our book. Which we didn't. Of course we didn't. But that's okay, because we can finish it today. I totally believe. But we were going to also choose like maybe 3 books and then choose a book out of that. But I got a text the other day from Bonnie, and she came up with what I thought was a good idea, especially coming upon the holidays. And, of course, our favorite grief specialist, I guess you would call him, that guy, Dr. Wolfelt, has a book. You could put that up, Rob, because I barely remember. I have it here.
It's Healing Through the Holidays or something like that?
Yeah, Healing Your Holiday Grief, something like that. Anyways, there it is, Healing Your Holiday Grief. I was right. So we do have a link. That'll be our next book. We thought it would be a good idea with the holidays coming up. And it's a short book, so it will probably take us through the holidays. Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah, because if you look at the cover, it says, 100 tips for getting through the holidays. Because, when you sit back and you think about, what are the, for lack of a better way to put it, peak times that people are depressed, and or subsequently contemplating or attempt suicide. A lot of times, it does happen around the holiday. That there is a lot of truth in that phrase. I've got the holiday blues. You know, people look at it as, oh, this is festive, this is, happy time and whatnot. What do I have to be happy about? You know,
Been that way for the last 6 years.
why should I be happy? The notion that, if I think Thanksgiving, and I'm just going to use Pat, for a moment just for this. Oh, that's where Patrick should have been sitting, or we've talked, I would say ad nauseum, for some people. When we're looking at the holidays, what are those traditions? I mean, Thanksgiving, Patrick always made deviled eggs. Haven't had Patrick's famous deviled eggs for 3 years. But along with that is, again, as the book, the book that we're, hopefully we're going to finish up today, says that, that it's understanding that, taking the memories that you had and, continuing to celebrate them. And so when I, as I'm in the kitchen and I was like, okay, I'm going to make the deviled eggs today. And I find myself, making it up, and I was like, all right, so what did you put in it? What should I put in it? And I know I'm not, talking, not crazy. I'm not crazy, guys. But I can do self-help. But no, seriously. But I find myself, with having, creating a warm feeling as I miss you like crazy, son, but you know what? I'm going to do these, I'm going to do these deviled eggs better than your famous recipe. I'm going to make mine taste better than yours. And then it's like, okay, so I fail, epic failure, but they're still, deviled eggs. When I think of what are some things that, he would have done around Christmas time, or what is, some of the things that, Aiden was the here. What were those traditions that are tweaked a little bit now that they're gone? Instead of, just like, oh my God, this is another sucky weekend and this person's not here and I really miss them. And I'm not saying it's okay to, this sucks that the person's not here. I'm cool with that. But I like that, here's some ideas to deal with it, to take some of the sting.
Yeah, it's a difficult time for me, even still, because like Bobby's birthday is November 17th. Mm-hmm. Then right after that, actually days after that, is Suicide Loss Survivors Day. Mm-hmm. And then the following week is Thanksgiving. And then Christmas and New Year's. And I started shortly after he passed the holidays he always made the holiday stuffing or dressing, whatever you call it. And he had the recipe written down and the recipe for the shopping list and the recipe for doubling it. And I have all those papers in his little book in his handwriting. And so I started doing that every Thanksgiving and Christmas if we have a family dinner on Christmas. And then New Year's Eve, we never, ever went out from our very first New Year's Eve. So even if I go out west to visit my family, I'm back home in Florida for New Year's Eve. Even if I'm there by myself, but that's okay. I have my cats because I still feel that he's still there, and that's the way I want to do it. Right. So.
And I like when you find those little things. My children, they talk about. And again, these traditions that happen around the holidays, lasagna always happens. And it was like, they tell their friends, my Nana makes the best lasagna. Why? It's like, okay, I've had lasagna. It's like, your lasagna tastes better than mine. Or, your lasagna is different. But I miss the kitchen competitions that I would go. So, Mom, I'm cooking dinner tonight. Okay, what are you making? You'll know when it's ready. I'm like, okay. And Patrick was an excellent cook.
Yeah,
but again,
Bobby was too.
So I love, like you said, finding this. I found this thing. He made this lasagna. I'm like, how did he make this lasagna? I found the recipe. He calls it banging lasagna. And it's like, because it is banging. It's a slang that they use. But it's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to make this. I'm going to see if mine comes out just as good as yours did. and like I said, just keeping it alive without, dwelling or allowing yourself to become drowned by the grief and the loss.
Well, it's still carrying the person with us. Bobby used to make this really awesome dipping sauce. And so one year I made it for Christmas for everybody because he had done that in the past. And then the following year, or maybe it was the same year, I gave our family members the recipe. And then the following year, my nephew made it for everybody. So it's just...
Yeah, no, it's nice it's nice keeping those traditions alive. I can't wait to dive into the book and start reviewing it. But speaking of books, we're going to dive back into our book, How to Carry What Can't Be Fixed, A Journal for Grief by Meagan Devine. My book has taken a little bit of a beating.
And where we left off is like perfect for what we've just been talking about, because it's chapter 15, Freedom to Live, and we're on page 181, Meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So I highlighted like the third paragraph. Meaning is one of those things only you can claim. It's not the same as finding a reason. To live a life of meaning is to find your own internal compass and to follow it as you honor your commitments to yourself, to others, and the world.
I agree with that. I mean, there are certain things that I think we all recognize that are personal to each one of us. We all can, experience a loss, but our individual journeys are individual journeys. I can understand what somebody is going through. However, it's not my journey, it's theirs. I don't grieve like you grieve. You don't grieve like I grieve. There might be some instances in which we do things exactly the same, but I love what she says here about, attaching that same thing to meaning.
Yeah, and it's the same thing even within families. Each individual person within the family grieves differently.
But I'm going to digress and go back for a minute to the very first sentence that she wrote in there, where she says, "Finding meaning is sort of the holy grail of grief work, as if finding a proper meaning in your loss will solve the grief once and for all." And when I read that, I was like, she's got a point there. There is no magic bullet. There is no magic wand that, you go like this, and suddenly, or pill that you take and suddenly all the loss and grief that you feel just
Well,
simply
it's
goes
like
away.
us sitting here every week doing this. This is part of our meaning, but it doesn't take away our grief.
No, it doesn't. I think for me, I separate grief and the loss. I put those two things in different categories. They are different. I understand the loss, and I've allowed, I've gotten to the point where I've allowed myself to live with the grief that I feel as it relates to that loss. And by learning to live with it, it lessens the sting somewhat.
Yeah. She says here, explore what has meaning to you a bit more in the days and weeks to come. And she gives you plenty of space, especially in this last chapter, to write and to explore things and come back and look at them again. You can write, you can draw, you can collage. Bonnie won't, but not in the book. Elsewhere, not in the book. Mine will be in the book. So, and it's just it's day by day. You don't have to look forward till next week or till next year. Just look forward to what can you do today, and then do the same thing tomorrow, step by step. And then sooner or later, that, like here, we are with me 6.5 years later. But it's still day by day, one day at a time.
Oh, yeah.
One
Oh,
day.
yes. It's always one day at a time. Sometimes for some people, it is 1 minute, 1 second at a time.
And it can be. And don't let that be a stopping point for you or something. If that's what it takes, that's all good.
Oh, yeah. So she says, getting to tomorrow. You might have an interesting reaction to envisioning the rest of your life. Dread. Looking ahead can be hard. How heavy that feels, all these years stretching out like a life sentence. And so, she talks about how people told her after her loss, and it's one of those things that I know I myself have been guilty of saying. It'll get better with time.
Yeah, you hear that
It'll
all the
get better
time.
with all of those cliches. It'll get better with time. They're in a better place. Spiritually minded people. It was God's plan. And I'm like, wait a minute. Where she says, look, you just had this weight thrown at you. It's only partly familiar. How you learn to carry it remains to be seen. And, what it says is, again, where she highlights, you can't see years down the road. I mean, I'm sure people would look at you and say, Tammy, come on now. It's been 6 years.
Oh, I get that, yeah.
You get over it, Tammy. It's been 6 years. And it's like, yeah, it's been 6 years and what?
So?
The reality of the loss is still there. There are some people who, I know, again, if I use myself as an example, I don't nearly feel, or I don't feel the pit of my stomach sadness that, drop a piece of paper on the floor and I'm going to burst out crying. I don't feel that on a consistent everyday basis that I did when the loss first happened. But that being said, one would question, well, how were you able to get over it? And I was like, don't think for a moment that I've gotten over it. I've just figured out what to do with this pit in my stomach. I've just figured out how to...
You learn how to integrate it into your life.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like, not that I'm comfortable with it, it's a part, it's like this has became a part of me.
Right.
So therefore, it's kind of like getting up in the morning and, taking your shower, brushing your teeth, putting in your clothes. Hello, stomach. It's kind of like that. Or hello, feelings.
Well, and here she even says, when the long view is too long, look to the day.
Yes.
What is here, right now, at your feet. No spark of interest or meaning has to last beyond this day.
Like I said, day by day, minute by minute, second by second.
And I've highlighted this section here a lot, and it's called Hope. And it's kind of odd because, to me anyways, probably not to most people, but because my maiden name is Hope. And it's weird because, when I was younger, when I first got married, the first time, I was like, oh, good, I get to change my name. For personal reasons, it was good. And now, with everything that has happened many, many years down the road, Hope has come back and been integrated into my life so much since losing Bobby. So it's almost like my maiden name coming full circle in a way. So this section, Hope, grief is like love. It has its own timeline, its own growth curve. As with all natural processes, we don't have complete control over it. What is in your control is how you care for yourself.
Yep.
And living with grief means finding ways to stay true to yourself, to honor who you are and what has come before, while living the days and years that remain. Living well is less about what you'll do and more about how you'll approach your own heart, how you'll live what's asked of you in this life. And she has here a series of questions to ask yourself. What your idea of living well while living with this would be. Given what you have to live, what are the elements of a good life, a beautiful life? Knowing that the complete removal of grief is not the goal, what might healing look like? What kind of person do you want to be for yourself and for others? And I would add, and for the person that you lost.
Right.
And what do you hope for yourself?
Yeah, I think for me what resonates the most in this particular chapter is, how she continues to illustrate that things have their own timeline and their own growth curve. That things are, that this is not linear. That it is not. It doesn't follow. It's not like this neat little package that you can put a bow on and say, here you go.
Or you go through the 5 or 6 stages of grief, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you're done.
It's,
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm there. It's fine, see ya. No, it doesn't work that way. She says here, when she says imagining your life, carrying love with you, moving forward as opposed to moving on, is a complex and complicated process. Given that your loss is not something that can be fixed, what would living a good life look like? How do you live here in a world that is so completely changed? And, I think, again, when you read something in the book and you're like, wow, that was that, where she was like, it's not moving on, it's moving forward.
Right.
So yeah, she nailed it with that one.
And she gives you room on the next page to write and do what you'd like, to come up with a vision what your future life might look like. There's also, she has an app on here. I haven't had a chance to go on there, but I'm going to go on and look at that and link it to our Facebook page. But here it is, Freedom to Live. We can't end this journal on a positive note, but we can end it on a hopeful one. This is your life. The story of this life isn't over. There are ongoing, ever-changing relationships in your life, with grief, with love, with the person you lost, with yourself. There are adventures and hardships and gifts. Your life is still a hero's journey. I undered that last part, along with highlighted it.
No, like I said, I love where she's like, it's our catchphrase, I love that our closing phrase is right there in that first chapter. We can be, or in this particular paragraph, we can give you hope, and that. My takeaway from this book, I always take something, with each, book that we review. But my takeaway from this one, it is quite, simple, that continuing understanding that this is a journey, this continuing understanding that, although your life is changed by the loss, that you can develop strategies to live within that change. It's not, for some people it's an easy process, for some it's not. But like I said, I love the message of this book.
Me too. And it's a book that, and she recommends this, go back through it again.
Exactly.
Take your time. You'll see how maybe you'll see a few months down how much you have grown or how much things have changed, what you have done for yourself. And like she says, it really is a hero's journey.
So what I like about journaling.
Yeah.
All right, so we want to do our numbers, we want to do our quotes.
Let's do our phone numbers. Please remember these numbers. I thought I put the new one up there that said call and text, but anyways, 988 is both a call or text number. That is the new number that rolled out. All the other numbers are still very viable. So keep these numbers available. Please put them in your phone.
Okay, what's our quote for the day?
Our quote.
Okay, you don't need to understand your journey in life. You need to trust that you're going in the right direction. And this quote I think was very applicable to this book and to this chapter. That this is a journey. You are not. You may think, "What am I doing? This is confusing. This doesn't make sense." All of it is what it is. But again, just trust. Hey, your feet are on a path that, you have them on, and whether you believe it or not, you're going in the right direction.
You are, even if it's minute by minute, day by day. So remember, there's always hope, and you are on a hero's journey. I want to thank you guys for joining us.
Good night.